Welcome back to the Baseball Blue Book podcast. My name is Eric Wilbenaw, the president of the Baseball Blue Book, and we have got a great episode planned for you today. We are with the head coach of Chatham College in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Coach Nic Rush. How are you, sir?
Good. Thank you for having me on.
I appreciate you joining us. Before we begin, I want to make sure I encourage you to subscribe to the channel. Share and comment. We are on iTunes, Spotify, and our YouTube channel. So we are excited to get new followers every day. And today, I'm excited back in Pittsburgh. I tell the guys that it's where I'm from. Not really where I'm from, but I love Pittsburgh. My heart's always there, and it's great to always talk to coaches in the area. Coach, how are you today?
I cannot complain. Everything's going well.
That's great. Well, as we do in all of our podcasts, we begin with the journey, and it's the coach's journey. More about you, kind of getting to know you, and how you got to the place that you are today. So why don't you go ahead and start off where you'd like, Coach?
Absolutely. So I originate from Columbus, Ohio, in the suburbs, the Pickerington, one of the suburbs on the east side. Played high school ball at Pickerington Central under Chick Campbell. Going through I think it's funny to kind of reflect on, because I think I was right on the edge of the kind of travel scene exploding and some of those things. So I played a year or two of travel, but also still played Legion ball, which seems to be a little bit of a dying breed, but really enjoyed my time there. From a playing standpoint, was a very borderline fringe Division I arm, and tried to take my chances there. I think a lot of my college search, looking back on it, was based on what I thought my friends were doing and what was going to be financially affordable for myself and my family. So I originally enrolled at Miami University in Ohio. I was there for 3 semesters. From the baseball standpoint of things did not work out there for me. So I actually went back home for 3 semesters, worked to try to, save up enough money to get back into school and finish my education. During that time at home, actually ended up connecting with George Yanchek, who had recruited me out of Fairmont State of Division II down in West Virginia. Ended up joining the program there and really enjoyed my time in my 3 years at Fairmont, but was able to finish up playing, get both my undergraduate and my master's in education. Once I graduated that summer, got married. My wife actually was the head softball coach at Bluffton University in Northwest Ohio at the time. So I found a teaching job in the area and really started with coaching college ball at Bluffton University as a volunteer assistant. So met Coach James Grandy through my wife, ended up there was a need for a volunteer at the time. And it was a kind of a perfect fit, because I had previously coached some summer ball with a lot of the guys that were in the recruiting class that year, and he kind of, gave me the responsibility to do some of the recruiting, to work with the infielders, work with the outfielders. And I was there for a couple of years and really enjoyed that. And then with the summer of 2017, my wife actually got the head softball job at Washington and Jefferson College out in Washington, PA. And as part of making the move out there, ended up kind of looking to figure out what I was going to do, if I was going to go into teaching, those sorts of things. And it just so happened that as I was moving into Washington, the assistant at Washington and Jefferson College had moved on to another job. So, as well as I do, the baseball world oftentimes is about connections. Yep. So Coach Grandy had actually been the NCAA rep when W&J had hosted a few NCAA regionals. So he had kind of, given Coach Jeff Mountain the lowdown about me. And I ended up sliding into staff there and was at Washington and Jefferson College as an assistant for 3 years. Really enjoyed my time learning under Coach Mountain. Actually was part of a team that made a World Series trip and was ranked as high as number 2 in the country. So really enjoyed that and feel that very strongly that, my time there was very helpful in terms of landing the position that I'm at now. So I made the move up to Chatham as the head coach in September of 2021. So coming up on 2 full calendar years, and just recently this past May finished second spring with the program. So kind of give you an idea of the path that I've taken here so far.
That's great. Did you always know you wanted to be coach?
I don't think initially it was it was the forefront, but like looking back, it was pretty apparent. I think it was probably later in high school into my college ages when it kind of hit. I honestly, I think when I first went to college, I thought I wanted to go into business, right? My mind was wrapped around I want to make money. And I made it through my first year of business classes. I did well in all of my classes, but I'm like, I don't know that this is for me. Like this, I don't know. So I went into education. My first day in intro to ed, they put like this graphic on the screen. He's like, this is how we're going to try to scare you out of the program. And it was the average teacher's salary of all the states. And I'm like, this is where I want to be. If that's the way that you're going to go about this, I enjoyed that. But no, so the teaching, coaching, and I feel like they're one and the same, right? I think with coaching, we're teaching, but we're teaching a game and we're teaching life skills. So I think looking back on it, yeah, that's where my heart's been. I don't think I realized it as early as I probably could have, but I think I found where I should
That's
be.
great. Let's talk about Chatham and kind of what did they see in you? Kind of, I always hear coaches' journeys of going through, one program to another. And it always is, it's exciting to talk to coaches about it because they're bringing something with them from each stop, right? Baseball from the outside, people think, well, man, people are changing jobs all the time. And I always look at it as they're picking little nuggets of knowledge from each one of these places and continuing to bring and build their kind of your career, right? And your skill set. So talk about what they saw in you and where did you get some of those skills and who you worked with to help you in that process of becoming the coach that you are today.
Absolutely. I think from, conversations over the past 2 years with my athletic director, I think two things really stood out to him as I went through the process. One was my experience in a championship level program being at W&J. I think he's made a kind of a mark of hiring youngish assistant coaches who have had time in a championship program that understand what it's like, right? That are hungry to kind of build their own program, and I think I fit that mold. If you look back through it and across all the sports that Chatham has hired, typically going more for oftentimes first time head coaches or coaches giving them an opportunity with a little bit less experience as opposed to being able to hire more established coaches. So I think my time in that program definitely helped. I think the other thing was kind of the recruiting background and the recruiting experience. I was able to gain a lot of recruiting experience at Bluffton, even just as the volunteer, and was able to get out on the road and do a lot of different things. And then also at W&J, I was able to do that. And I think the track record that was left there, just both in terms of the guys that were brought in, the quality of both the ball players and the human beings, I think that helps. So I think the credit goes very directly to Coach Mountain at W&J and the players that I was a part of in terms of having that piece of being around the championship program and having that experience and learning the way to do things and the way to carry yourself both on and off the field. I think the recruiting piece, I think that goes directly to both Coach Mountain and Coach Grandy for giving me the opportunity, right? I think for one of the things I talk about a lot, and now assuming the head coach role, I've tried to make sure that I'm doing or continue to check back in is giving the responsibility and letting guys learn and understand what they're doing, right? Like letting good coaches do their job and do it at a high level. So I was fortunate to end up working for two very good head coaches that I think very highly of it, that I maintain good relationships with to this day. And they obviously mentored me and showed me the ropes, but they also kind of let me learn things on my own and have a lot of responsibility, more so than I was expecting going into the positions, but I'm forever grateful
That's
for
great. We're right in the heart of recruiting season. You guys are out there, probably kids coming in the campus, doing some visits. Talk about the role of recruiting. Obviously being the head coach now, it seems there's a lot of coaches that have their assistants do it and kind of, they allow them to do the recruiting. Are you part of the recruiting process? Are or do you kind of let other people take care of that?
Absolutely. I want to be involved. But I also want to, like I said, kind of reflect my experience as an assistant and let our guys do and learn from the
Right.
experience. So my first 2 years, the 2 years that have passed, I actually had the opportunity to coach with a good buddy of mine, a very good buddy of mine, Trevor Bierman. We've known each other for probably close to a decade now, and he had a good recruiting background. He had done a really good job at a few different programs. So for him, it was just like, hey man, like, is this guy able to help us? Is it a good person? Is it a good ball player? If so, let's get him on campus. Let's start the process. You tell me what you need from me. And he did a really good job for us. And fortunately for him, not so much for our program, did so good of a job of it. He's actually headed to Eastern Michigan to be their full-time recruiting coordinator. So ecstatic for him. It's definitely a loss for our program, but I think that's part of the job is helping guys move on and turn it into a career. And whatever small role that we as a program and myself played in that, we're very fortunate to have been a part of. But no, as we're moving through the hiring process right now, we've got a couple of assistant coaches lined up that we think are going to do a really good job for us. And we actually just got done with a couple of visits and having lunch with those guys to map out the fall and kind of the same thing. Like, you guys understand what it takes to be successful at this level in this conference. They both have some ties to the conference. If you find a player that could fit, get them on the phone. Let's start having conversations with them. If you need me to jump in at any point, let me know. But no, I'm trying to, empower our assistants and value in what they have and their opinions, because I respect both of them, all of them that we've had in my time here. So I do like to be involved, but I have no interest and I do everything I can not to micromanage. I want to let those guys learn and grow and help develop the program as best as they can in the ways they know how.
That's great. It's the signs of a good leader. I always think of coaching. I do a lot of comparison with business, and you talked about thinking about being in the business world. A great salesperson, it's kind of how people learn they kind of come up in the sales realm, and then they get into an executive position, and the ones that should have stayed in sales are the ones that never let go of the sales, right? And the good executive is able to bring in some good people, be good salespeople, and then give them the tools that they need to become successful. And so it sounds like that you were really good at it, but you also, from a leader perspective, you want to be able to allow your guys to do that. Walk through with being, you understand the recruiting, and we're again, like I said, we're right in the middle of the recruiting season. Give me an example of, you had mentioned, hey, I've seen this kid, or one of your assistants have said, hey, I see this kid, we need to get him in, we need to start talking to them. Talk about and really be talking to players out there, right? The 16, 17-year-olds that are thinking about college baseball. I love the feedback I get from coaches into putting it into a perspective that these kids can understand, because they don't understand, right? It's totally different. I think the last Coach Torres told me, he said, it's easier to go from college ball to the majors than it is from high school to college, because of the physicality of the two. And it was an interesting perspective that he brought, and I don't think a lot of people hear that. So give us that idea from a recruiting perspective. You're talking to players, and they want to know what it's all about and how should they be prepared.
Yeah, I think that piece about the physicality is huge. I think really a lot of times it comes down to the comfort factor. We see guys often, and we tell recruits, like, oftentimes we see guys not perform in the fall up to the level where their talent, or where we saw them the summer before, or in the spring season. And I think a lot of it has to do with can they get comfortable with new surroundings? You're talking new classes, new teammates, new coaching staff, probably a new practice structure. You're probably away from home for the first time, all of those different things. So really, when you start to feel comfortable in the classroom, feel comfortable around your new teammates, and feel comfortable with a new competitive, probably a different type of competitive environment that you've been part of before, then that's when we start to see you typically play at your best. For some guys, that takes 2 weeks. For some guys, it takes 2 months, and sometimes it takes longer than that, right? So oftentimes we get asked the question, like, hey, what kind of role can I have as a first year? And it's like, honestly, you're here, you're with us on campus for a reason, but we can't predict that until we see you in those settings, see how you handle adversity, see how you battle through the highs and the lows, and those sorts of things. So I think my best type of advice, I think, like you said, the physicality. Like, I don't think we've ever told, or maybe there's ever been a college baseball player told that they were too strong to play the game, right? So I think the weight room is a huge piece. I think it can transform games. I think it can also start to clean up some things mechanically that might be seen as flaws or things that need to be cleaned up a little bit. And then I think, the big piece you hear it often probably is find your right fit. Where is the right fit for you socially, academically, from the baseball standpoint, right? Like, are you wanted? Are you desired in the program? Like, is there a path for you to have a role? All those sorts of things matter as you're kind of navigating the process. And I think one of the things that we have to understand from a coaching standpoint, and recruits and their families have to understand, it's not an exact science. I think people oftentimes get too wrapped up in like, oh, my teammate committed here, so does that mean I'm this level of player? My teammate did this. Like, focus on yourself, do everything that you can, put yourself in the position, and don't forget about the piece of continuing to improve your game and develop and get better while you're out trying to get recruited, right? Oftentimes 16U, 17U is focused on being seen by college coaches and those sorts of things, but we want you continuing to get better, right? We can't neglect that piece.
That's good. Before we go into the second half, and then this is a great segue into really talking about the kind of players that you're looking for and some advice that they have, I want to encourage everybody to download the our app, Baseball Blue Book app on iTunes and on Android, the Google Play. Also, subscribe and share the YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify and iTunes, Baseball Blue Book podcast. Lots of great coaches. Today we are with Coach Nic Rush over at Chatham in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We're talking about kind of players, and I appreciate kind of your insight as far as how players need to be kind of looking and getting stronger. What are some questions that you would like to hear asked from the players that may be interested in playing for you? What are your favorite questions? What are questions that maybe you wish that they would ask? And so again, we're talking to the players and the parents out there, giving them great advice in their journey to their next playing opportunity.
That's a really good one. It's funny that you asked what the ones we'd like to ask. I was probably more prepared for you to say which ones do you hear most often. I think
you can start there. You could start with the ones that you hear most often.
The one that we probably hear the most often is what are my chances of playing as a first year, which is really difficult to answer, right? Because like we've talked about in the past, like you don't know necessarily where a guy is going to come in at, how they're going to handle failure, how they're going to handle success, those sorts of things. So I think we hear that one very often, and then probably the number two or 1B would be what is a day in the life of a player at Chatham at insert school here, which I completely understand and it makes sense. I think one that I would like to be asked, and maybe it's just something that I really dive into is what is the plan for the development? What is the plan for myself as a player, or for my son in this program? Like, how do you see the path playing out, kind of in a standard way? How do you see the path playing out in the most successful way possible? And I think for us, I would like to hear that, because we talk a lot with our recruits and with our current players about the player development process being a collaboration, right? We're not all knowing beings, at least that's the way we treat it in our program. So for us, we have experiences both as players and as coaches that we're going to use to guide us and to help us, but we want to know what the player is bringing to the table too, right? We actually had it in this past winter. A couple of our guys kind of came into the office really shy, like, Coach, I'm thinking about going to go work with this guy at this facility and this sort of thing. And it's like, is that okay? And it's like, you think I'm going to have a problem with you wanting to go get better? No, have at it. And you don't realize with the people that you're going to go see, we probably have conversations with every week, every other week. Like we're, it makes a ton of sense. So no, I think that piece would be one that I'd probably be interested in hearing a little bit more often, because I think, understanding like where you could fit into a program, I think that would help with a lot of clarity as recruits and their families try to navigate that decision.
That's great. That's a great question that should be asked to any college coach, I believe, because it's really what are we doing to take us to that next level, whatever it is. And I think that carries into my next question is, what kind of players are you looking for? And I think that kind of carries into kind of your philosophy and what what you're doing at the program.
Absolutely. No, I think with where the program has been, or being so young, and the program only being in existence for 7 years, I think we've kind of tailored our focus, and we tell people that ask us that same question, we are looking for competitors, we're looking for winners, and we're looking for ball players. Like that's really what it boils down to if you want to make it as simple as possible, right? Obviously, production stands out, tools stand out, those sorts of things. But really, at the end of the day, we're looking for people that want to compete at a very high level, that hopefully preferably have some experience winning. And obviously the ball player point, like if you can add value in really any facet nature of the game, that stands out to us, right? Those would be the pieces in terms of the on the field stuff, but the character, what type of human being you are, holds a lot of weight with us as well. For if you think about it, we're going to spend a lot of time with you. Your teammates are going to spend a lot of time with you over the course of the next 4 years. We want to bring in young men into our program that are going to be enjoyable to be around, that are going to elevate those around them, and that it's going to be a good experience for everybody.
What do you see as what character is something that we talk about a lot, right? It's obviously the skills, being a ball player, being competitive, but there's the unspoken ones, right? The character things. What are some things that you look at as green flags, and then what are some things that you look at as red flags?
I think that's a very, if you'd asked me that 3 or 4 years ago as an assistant coach, I think my answer probably would have been far different than now as a head coach. I think the easiest way to answer that would be how they treat themselves, how they treat others, and how they treat their parents or their family members. I think that's kind of the quickest way. I think though, as a head coach too, you kind of see like where there's the gray area between, that competitive fire, right? We often say to guys like, "Hey, I'd rather have to rein you in than kind of light a fire and get you
Yeah.
going," right? So you have to understand the give and the take with that, and I think that's something that my eyes have been open to in the head coaching role. Is we talk about and we preach competitive passion and competitive fire. Like we have to know, we have to understand what's going to come with that. We also have to help educate ourselves as coaches, our players, as to where and what we're going to do to compete at a high level, but still maintain respect for the game, respect for our teammates, and respect for our opposition as well.
That's good. I always said that you can't teach motivation. I mean, there's skills that you can teach, but you can't teach somebody to be motivated. They've got it or they don't, right? And
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
I think that's really good. So let's talk about the program. 7 years, you've been there for a couple of years now. Talk about Chatham, and this is your time to kind of just kind of talk it up. What makes it great? What are the things that kids can look forward to? You can go into urban setting, rural setting, the campus life. Just kind of the next few minutes, just talking about Chatham.
Absolutely, absolutely. So obviously I'm biased in my take, but I think Chatham University is a hidden gem in Pittsburgh. I mean, it's smack dab in the heart of the city, but you can sit out on campus on the quad and have no idea that you're in the middle of a big city because we're tucked away. We're tucked away right between the Shady Side and the Squirrel Hill
Yep.
neighborhoods. I say it's honestly, like on the way in, you're going through private drives lined with $2 million homes. Like our admissions building tells everybody, 2 or 3 houses down from admissions is Mike Tomlin's house, right? So kind of gives you an idea of the area that we're in. But we're tucked away to the point where if you want that smaller school, that more intimate
Yep.
setting, you can kind of stow away on campus. You can have that. But I mean, you're walking distance to Pitt, you're walking distance to Carnegie Mellon. I mean, probably in a 2 or 3 square mile, kind of radius, you're talking 55, 60,000 college students, right? So there's always something to do. From an entertainment standpoint, I think having the city also helps from a professional standpoint, right? The opportunity to obtain internships or clinical experience where you can interact in the field that you want to, where it's going to look good on a resume, but it's also going to help you where you're not necessarily just learning on the fly once you get into your profession or your field. So academically, we We provide a very strong education and a very strongly valued degree. I think probably our sweet spots in terms of majors would be the health sciences. I think the exercise science one is one that jumps out. Not everybody has it. We have a strong one, strong ties and relationships with UPMC and the Allegheny Health Network. But we also have a master's of athletic training and a doctorate of physical therapy in-house as well. And there's some integrated degree programs where you can obtain either your master's or your doctorate in a less time and obviously spending less money than you can if you were doing it at separate universities. The business cluster of majors is a big one that jumps here. Psychology, education, we've got a little bit of everything, but those are the ones that really jump out. On the baseball end of things, the university used to be a female-only institution, went co-ed about 8 or 9 years ago. So the baseball program this past spring was only our 7th spring in existence. So I was the 3rd head coach, I believe, in about 5 years. I wouldn't necessarily say that got off to the strongest start when the program was first put into place, but I think things are moving in the right direction. The guy that preceded me, DJ Cannon, he's actually the head coach at Gannon now, started moving things in the right direction and getting it on the tracks. Unfortunately, his first year was COVID, so barely even got the season started. And then after the next year, he had taken on the new job. But no, we feel like we're one of the faster rising programs in the area. I say in year one of our staff being in place, we set a new program record for wins in a single season. That was in 2022, and then we followed it up in 2023 with resetting that record and also having the first winning season in program history. So we're excited about the trajectory of the program. We're excited about the people, both in terms of who they are off the field and who they are from a talent perspective that we have in the program that we're adding to the program. And I think it's a place that could see a lot of success in the future. So from a facility standpoint, we have all turf lighted facility. Nice. And it's got a cool little piece of baseball significance. It's actually the park where the Homestead Grays of the Negro Leagues used to play. Obviously it wasn't turf back then. There's been a significant financial contribution that was made by a community member back in 2016 to really upgrade the place. But we're fortunate to have an agreement in place to call Westfield home, and it's really fortunate for all that provides.
That's great. Well, I'm like I said, I lived in Pittsburgh, and the area of Chatham is one of the nicer areas in the area. I mean, you talked about Shady Side and some of the nicest places, and you have no idea that you're right that close to downtown. So I encourage anybody to take a look at it and check it out. Coach, it's been a privilege, honor talking with you. Excited about your program, what you're doing there. You just bring a lot of great insight and knowledge to the game, and I appreciate your time being with us on the Baseball Blue Book podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you.